Welcome to the Phantom Zone.
Hello, in this week's episodes, first is Recruit. Clark gets recruited to Met You and has to decide what his future will hold. Then, in Krypto, Lois hits a sweet doggo who is forced into crime, and Lana questions Jason's mother's motivations. This is the Smallville Chronicles. Well, hello again. We are back. I am joined, as always, by Alan Muir.
We're back after like what, 2 weeks up, a week or two
2 weeks off. Yeah. So we have an interesting pair. These are kind of really good episodes, especially this first one, in that it's it's the return of Lois. She's in both of these episodes. So she's been gone for since episode 2?
No, she was in the Witches episode.
Oh yeah, I blacked that out.
I had a feeling you purposely try to black it out.
Yes, all the bad episodes I try to black out, which we'll get to at the end of this for our previews. But obviously this one, this kind of is really interesting because it follows a lot of kind of real issues when it comes to like college sports specifically. And obviously there's the great play on kind of Easter egg thing with the player who is recruiting Clark, whose name is Jeff Johns, specifically named after the writer-artist who's like I don't even know what his title at DC is anymore, because he's moved over to like the movies and TV side, I believe, right?
Yeah. Hopefully one day he'll finish Doomsday Clock.
Yeah. Oh my god, I forgot. So yeah, just got pushed back again. If you want to hear more about that, listen to them. And Now Comics. So we kind of start off this with, I actually love the way this starts out, where it's like a frat party drinking contest.
Oh, yeah. I know we already got past the Jeff Johns stuff. I just wanted to say he's written practically every comic, every title for DC.
Yeah, and I would say he's mostly known for revitalizing characters that were kind of, at the time, known for like being terrible, like terribly written specifically, which I think of like his Green Lantern run, because before that, it had been like a decade plus where Green Lantern was like kind of, well, he brought back Hal Jordan specifically, but like...
He brought back Hal and Barry, and he's, even though Scott Snyder's technically going to get there first, he's also sort of doing the same thing with the Justice Society.
Yes. Trying to do that. He like remade Aquaman to make Aquaman not sucky. Like, I loved his Aquaman run. He does have like some great runs.
I remember it was the DC. I was WonderCon 2016. But the day I saw it was Batman v Superman. They were talking about, he was talking about how like people told him, "Hey, you can't make Aquaman cool. You can't make Booster Gold cool." Like betting him that he can't do it. And then the entire time they were just crapping on Dan DiDio, which they should.
Yeah, which Aquaman, like, he made Aquaman cool before Jason Momoa. And because I like his Aquaman a lot, and that's basically the character that we still have. Because before that, it was like the bearded, one-handed Aquaman. Because he jumped on, I think he took over for like the New 52.
Yeah, he wrote about a year and a half or 18, 19 issues. And I don't know if he ever finished. There's supposed to be a storyline he was supposed to write that never saw light of day for some reason.
Yeah, he probably got way too busy, which is why Doomsday Clock is forever delayed.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote virtually every Justice League, like New 52 Justice League issue.
Yeah, the only character I can think of that he hasn't really been connected to is Batman, right? Like, specifically a Batman book. Like, he's done Superman. He's done Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Justice League.
If you count the Earth 1 books, then he has done Batman.
Okay. And he hasn't done Wonder Woman either, I don't think, right?
That's a good question. Vamp while I check comic book database.
All right. I'll start going through this episode. So this episode starts in an awesome way to reintroduce Lois Lane. So basically we go to a frat party, and it's Lois is in a drinking contest with a football player named Coop.
Oh, and they're all like in their Letterman jackets, and she's in her pajamas.
Yeah, which is awesome. Which is also like another thing. Like, I don't think, maybe it was like a style of the era. Like, I don't remember college people wearing, like, that's not like a thing. Like, you don't wear like your college jacket. You wear like your high school one in high school. But they don't really sell, like, that's like a hoodie. But, like, people don't wear like a Letterman jacket in high school. But the rest of it's like really interesting. Like, oh, we're finally introducing like some more adult stuff. So this is a frat party and there's drinking, and
Okay,
also
I pulled up. He's
Mhm.
written Teen Titans, Tom Strong, Ultimate X-Men, Vibe,
oh,
Wonder Woman,
okay,
Young Justice, Superman, like a lot of Superman, Star
yeah.
Strike, Superboy. He's Shazam. He did that series in 2015.
Oh, yes.
Gary Frank. He did a really good tie-in or leading up to Infinite Crisis, like the Olmec Project. He's best known for JSA, like both Justice Society of America and JSA.
Probably Green Lantern is probably the other big one that he's known for. Like those two,
Yeah, he
because he created all the colors. That was like his big thing. Like all the other cores.
yeah he basically he had it like a virtual 8-9 year run with the character from starting from
From like Rebirth. He went like it was like it was like Rebirth. Was it Sinestro Corps or was it a reverse?
it was Green Lantern Rebirth in 04 or 04 or 05. Then afterwards, there was the Green Lantern ongoing. Then it led into Blackest Night, or no, Sinestro Corps War, Blackest Night, Brightest Day.
And then basically that's when it after Brightest Day is when it turns into New 52, or it turns into Flashpoint and then New 52.
The only person I can compare him to is while he was doing all this stuff, it was sort of similar to what Bendis was doing at Marvel, like where he was either really good or that's the way I've always seen it. Like
Yeah, I feel like
Marvel had Bendis, DC had Johns.
yeah, and John's kind of after Green Lantern. I feel like he got this reputation of he's the guy you bring in to fix a character.
Oh, so he's the Rock.
Yeah,
He's
that's
like
a kind of
version of the Rock.
because he did the Flash after Green Lantern, right?
He did Flash Rebirth, or no, not Flash. He did Flash Rebirth. He also did.
So I guess he did Aquaman. He went Green Lantern, then to Aquaman, then to Flash.
He wrote Flash in, I want to say, oh no, he started with issue 164 in, I want to say, 2000, and went on for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so okay, so he was writing Flash and Green Lantern at one point simultaneously. And I guess he jumped off of it after Flashpoint, and then I guess he jumped back on at some point in Rebirth. But yeah, Jeff Johns is like one of the most.
No, we'll talk about this on NL Comics. We have a show where we could do that
because we haven't even introduced the character in the episode. So like while this drinking game is going on, to get back into it, our other football player Jeff Johns shows up and breaks it up because he says that they're going to have a physical in the morning, and basically it's like, you know, Coop, you need to be done, and Coop's like, no, I'm not going to lose to a girl, and then he loses to Lois. So Coop makes a move on Lois.
Yeah, she's walking away, and he's like, you doing the whole typical drunk thing, like you cheated or somehow or something, and then she, like, I think either elbows him in the back or
he does a little bit more. He kind of also hits on her, and yeah, she kind of like spins and kicks him and knocks him to the ground. Because again, like it's one of the things that I like about this version is that this Lois is a general's daughter and knows how to kick ass.
Yeah.
So he's kind of on the ground, and then she leaves.
We cut to the morning where they do the very at the time thing where her feet are where her head should be, and she basically just did a 180.
Yeah, I think her feet are up on a pillow.
Yeah, and there's heavy like knocking at the door, and she's doing the whole go away shtick. And is it campus police or?
I think it's like real police.
Okay.
Because campus police can't arrest you, really. But whatever way, like she gets arrested, which makes no sense in real life, but it's the TV show because all she'd have to say is like, this drunken football player tried to like assault me, and I defended myself, and they would just drop everything.
Yeah, but, and that they tell her that Coop is paralyzed, and then we cut to the camp barn.
Yep. So at the barn, Clark's getting ready to go visit you. Jonathan's like, he's not comfortable with it because he's like, you're going to be, you know, I know what it's like. You're going to be tempted to use your abilities. College football is way different. Like there's going to be more eyes on you. And then as this is going on, this is when Jeff Johns shows up to basically bring him there. And they kind of like joke around because he also went to Smallville. And then they go to Smallville High and like talk about like how he was such a great football player. And I believe, I can't remember, but like Jeff Johns is, I think he says he's like the running back of the team. And because I think Jonathan makes a comment, this is one of those continuity issue things where Jonathan makes a comment that like he took his old spot or broke his old record or something like that. Because during the series, Jonathan, I think at some point that he says he's a quarterback and then they change it to running back. But so they're in the school and Lois is out on bail and she shows up to talk to Chloe. And basically Lois is like that she
I'm not
thinks,
sure I understand.
and that will be Siri on my phone. I was holding, it was on my watch actually. So Lois wants to go to Met You and bring Chloe with her, and Chloe's like, well, I could visit the financial aid office while I'm there. So Clark meets up with them, and Chloe's surprised that Clark is deciding to go and take the football scholarship to Metropolis, saying kind of that it's unfair, and Clark's like, wait, what? And because Clark doesn't know that Chloe knows about his abilities, and tells her that like being a great football player isn't the only thing bringing him to Met You. He kind of makes some excuse, and Chloe doesn't want to let Clark. This is like that whole roundabout thing. I actually think they do good. So now Chloe's like, oh, I can't let Clark know that I know his secret. And he's like, well, I'm just saying that like you can do more than just play football. Like you're smarter than that. And before it goes on any further, Johns returns and they go to Met You. Now we get to go to that other awesome story. So Jason shows up at the Luthor Mansion. He questions Lex about the job offer. Jason does not like the fact that Lex was trying to break up his relationship with him and Lana. And Lex tells Jason that his true threat is his mother, not him. Like, tells Jason that his threat is his mother, not Lex. She's been researching about her ancestry, which ties in with Lana's, and like her being possessed by Countess Margaret Isabel Thoreau. And Lex basically tells Jason, like, look, everything is weird here, but like your mom is into some weird ass stuff. Like something is going on. She's the problem. And Jason's like, and he basically tells like your assignment is to find out, like to basically be a mole and find out what your mom knows about Lana and stuff. And basically like it's like really goofy because Lex is like, I want you to spy on your mom for me because your mom is spying on your girlfriend. And yeah, and this all culminates in the episode we'll talk about next week. So at the hospital, Lois goes to talk to Coop, who's paralyzed, wanting to learn more about what happened. Chloe and Lois look through the bouquets and they get well cards and they figure they should meet his girlfriend Monique, a sorority girl at Tri Alpha. So from here, we bump to Clark and Johns are going to the sorority house to go to a party where they're basically throwing themselves at Clark, which this is all very realistic in a way. It's over the top, but it's also not.
Yeah, I saw something like this on a documentary called Blue Mountain State.
There's like another really good movie. It's a Spike Lee movie called they keep trying to remake it, called He Got Game. It's with Denzel Washington and Mia Jovovich and Ray Allen, who was a basketball player, is now retired. And it's like a crazy ass movie, but like they show him getting recruited. And it's like, it's a Spike Lee movie, so it's like very serious. It's for basketball, and it's like literally like this. And if you just watch any ESPN documentary on college sports, this is a thing that happens all the time. So Clark being Clark is like super Boy Scout, like prude, and kind of like dances around and doesn't get involved in anybody. The sorority sisters they go to meet him. Two of the girls bring Clark into another bedroom to try to seduce him. Clark's all weird, and then he hears noises in the closet, and there's a person in there. And he basically tells the girls, do you think you can give me something to eat? And then tells them, do you think you can give me something to drink? And then basically opens the door, and Lois is standing in there. He's just like, what the hell are you doing here? And she's like, I'm actually reading like Coop's girlfriend's diary, looking for clues. And basically finds out that Monique had suspicions that there was like a secret on the football team, and Coop was going to go meet with a reporter about it, and she thinks that's why he actually got paralyzed. So enter in like the real story of this episode. So then we cut to the hospital, and Coop is visited by Johns, and he sees that Coop's paralysis is wearing off. John suspects that Coop is going to regain consciousness. He'll tell the world about a secret, and John like paralyzes him again and then smothers him, which is pretty intense. Which I think is like one of those things that we've talked about before in the show, is that like it kind of fluctuates hard at times from like being very serious to being over the top goofy. So we literally just left like Clark and Lois in this like weird Three's Company situation to now somebody murdering like their friend and teammate in a hospital bed. So we cut back to Met U. Lois and Clark are looking for Johns. Johns is all upset, and he's like, the coach just called him and told him that Coop died. And Lois is freaking out because she's like, you know, they're going to put this on me because I like hit him and they think I assaulted him and caused it. And she tells Johns that like Coop wanted to go to the newspaper and reveal something. And basically Johns is like, I don't know why you're hanging out with this person, Clark. Like she did all this stuff. She's done enough damage. It gets like real shitty with Lois and kind of like makes Lois like leave the I guess the situation. And then we cut back to that awesome other plot. So at the Talon, Lana is pissed that Jason accepted Lex's job, and Jason basically just tells her, like, I'm going to use this opportunity to get to know more about Lex, about what he knows about us, and what he knows about your research on the Countess. And she's just like, don't you think this is just Lex and your mom's way of breaking us up? And Jason tells Lana to trust him, and she decides that she's going to go have a talk with Lex herself. So at the wake for Coop, Johns is giving a speech. He starts drinking and tells Clark that being a Met U Bulldog is a dream come true, but it also comes with a ton of pressure. Clark uses his super hearing when Johns meets the student Marcus and basically learns that Marcus was basically paid to give like clean urine samples to everybody. And Clark also sees that Johns was able to momentarily paralyze him with his hands, which kind of leads into the whole story of like why this is an interesting plot when it comes to Clark. So Chloe's filling out her financial forms with Lois in the dorm, and Clark comes in and he's like, yeah, I saw Johns paralyze a guy. I think he paralyzed Coop, and that he was getting like these clean urine samples from this guy, and basically that he thinks that Johns has been using his power, his, you know, meteor rock abilities this entire time, and that's how he got to be where he is. And then Lois is like, oh, but no one beyond the Smallville city limits has gotten this stuff. Like, who like knows about the meteor freak stuff? No one will believe that like college football star is going to have superhuman powers. And Lois finds this Marcus guy, and then she basically figures out how to where she can get a clean urine sample. And then Johns comes from behind. Lois attempts to leave, but Johns paralyzes her and tells her that in high school he played football like okay, but once he entered college, it was like a much different level with the pressure. And now Lois knows way too much, so he has to take matters into his own hands. And he drags her into his truck, and her sunglasses fall off, and then he drives away. But no one notices like this man dragging this woman into a truck. It's
This
pretty
lifeless woman, like who,
yeah.
And her sunglasses fall off, and they don't even. Nothing even happens. Like he doesn't pick them up and try to do like a what was that movie? A Weekend at Bernie's, where even though she's not dead but paralyzed, he could still. I don't know why, but when that part happened, the movie just anyway.
All right, so thanks to some technical difficulties, I am now back. So last I left,
We were talking about how Johns was taking away Lois and her, how he missed what could have been a great comedic moment in terms of how people always wanted to live out a weekend at Bernie's.
Okay, I didn't hear you say that before my thing dropped out. That's funny. But yeah, he puts her in this like 60s like death trap thing where like the water is going to slowly fill, and so she's going to drown very slowly. And
it's sort of like that in Deadpool where he's chasing the guy on the ice rink with the Zamboni.
Yes, yeah.
You're gonna be dead in an hour.
Yeah, so like we keep cutting back to Lois as the water is slowly rising. Did I talk about the Chloe part yet with the OnStar?
No.
All right, because I talked for like about several minutes before realizing my computer froze. So Clark, knowing that like because Chloe saw the truck go away, So Clark is like, oh, if he was in the truck, like they told me all about this stuff. So their fake OnStar thing. He pretends to be John's. He finds out where it is. Chloe is like, oh, I'm going to look over here because of stuff. So when I come back around, Clark, you're still going to be there. Oh, look, you're gone. Like kind of sets him up for like an opportunity to leave. And I don't remember if it's this episode or one of the upcoming ones when he's like, kind of like, okay, she's like randomly making it so that I don't see her. Like he's kind of like, this is weird. But he goes, he finds John's, and John goes to use his powers on him. They don't work. And basically Johns breaks down and basically says like, you know, I was really good and all this stuff. And there wasn't that much pressure in high school.
And then everything changed when he got to college.
Yeah. And he started using his powers more and more. And basically he got found out. And that's like why he had to kill Coop. And now why he had to kill Lois. And Clark's like, you killed Lois. And he's like, well, she's probably dead by now anyway. And is basically just like, he ends up telling Clark where she is. He heat visions a gate, which like releases the water and then saves Lois. And then we cut to the Kent farm. So Jonathan and Martha are they're just like dumbfounded, like at the revelation about John's. And Clark's like, yeah, I'm not.
America's sweetheart could do this, saying this stuff.
Yeah, and Clark's like, I really need to rethink about all this. Like, and he only had like this limited ability. And, you know, I don't want to lie. On every single physical, like, and who knows what else I would have to do, just like John's. And so he turns down the scholarship to Met U. We cut back to Lex, who meets Lana at the talent apartment and tells her how Jason was brought up knowing about the Countess. This causes Lana to reevaluate how well she knows Jason. So this is basically where Lex is like, yeah, it's a bad storyline, but Lex is like, do you really think that like his mom would know about this thing and their history with the Countess and he wouldn't? Which is where like this whole like how I feel like they couldn't decide whether or not Jason was in on it or not, and they finally decide that he's in on it the whole time, but it makes no sense in retrospect with like the meeting with the mom in the car and like all this stuff. So Lois visits Clark at the farm and is like, you know, thank you for saving me. I got cleared of all the charges, but I did also get kicked out of Met U for drinking underage.
And it wasn't the first time, which just makes me love this version of Lois even more.
Yeah, and then Clark's like, oh, okay, like I'm wondering like if you have any. She's like, oh, if you really want me, I can like move back in. And he's like, wait, what? And he's like, whatever. So at school, Chloe meets with Clark and lets him know that she also got into Met U. So he wouldn't go there alone. But then Clark says that he actually turned it down. And Chloe's like, oh. But she then actually is like, you know, I really respect you for turning that down. You have much more to offer the world than just being a jock. And Clark is like kind of surprised by the words, but he's also like, okay, this is like weird. And then at the stadium, Clark is just kind of like by himself, like mopily walking around.
Okay.
Like,
I was to say, isn't me, or does it looks like the stadium in this episode looks like why does it looks familiar?
I don't know. It's got to be a real stadium. I wonder if it's got to be like, I'm guessing it's for like the Canadian Football League.
No, I mean like I've seen it. I'm not saying that it's the one that was used in like the fall finale for Flash season 1 when him and Eobard are racing through the football stadium in Central City.
Oh, and you know what? It probably is the same one that they used. Remember, because they also did it. What's her name? The cell phone girl from this past season was in a football stadium too. So I did look at it's BC Place, which is in Vancouver, and who plays here? I don't know. They had a FIFA World Cup there in 2015. Yeah, it's for the CFL and the soccer team stadium. Their CFL team is named the BC Lions. So yeah, I'm sure it's the exact same stadium that they've used every time in Flash and Arrow because it's right there. It's in Vancouver. So
oh my god, I can actually do it like a correct version this time. Okay, there's a line Chloe says in the episode. Quote, I just have a feeling you're destined to do a lot more in this world than just score touchdowns, which is nearly word for word said, but what was said by Glenn Ford in the 78 Superman film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, there's like a couple other funny like notes I'm looking at here. So like in the episode,
he seems strangely
yeah.
about Alicia like Baker's death. Even though,
Well,
like,
my thought is like if that was during like this, I feel like there is a big time jump, and that's the only way this makes sense. Because if he's being recruited, the football season, well, this is the problem where like this is obviously some people who have no idea like how this works. So if he's a senior, he would have been like already recruited, and he would have been given his scholarship like during the season. But they kind of make it seem like this is like well after the football season's over, like maybe after winter break.
and also,
Although,
well,
do we get a Christmas episode this season?
no, I think it's either season 5 or 6. There's only one Christmas episode, I think, in the entire series.
The Lex one?
Lexmas.
Lex. Yeah, so based on like the timeline for like the episodes, I would say this is like supposed to, they're acting like this is like the last quarter of the year when he would be recruited like in the first quarter of the year.
Yeah.
Because those like, they only have like a couple more episodes, like in like 5 or 6 more episodes is like prom. So, and prom is like right at the end of the school year.
I just love the part where he went where Jeff mentions he wanted to see his old coach, who it says here technically it should have been Walt Arnold.
Yes, he's like way dead. Well, no, he's only been gone for like a year, and that was like season 1. So I don't know who was the coach between. Like we never saw the coach.
It's presumed that Coach Quigley was assistant coach at the time.
Oh, okay. The other thing that's funny, which does come back in when we get the character, is that so in this episode, Johns refers to Clark as CK, and that is what Jimmy called him in this show, but it's also what Jimmy referred to him in Lois and Clark. So
I forgot to mention this. Big rest in peace to the actor who played Pa Kent on Lois and Clark.
Oh, did he? Oh, he died like real recently, right?
Yeah, he was also in A League of Their Own.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
this was a really good episode.
Yeah, it's like it was a lot of reading to kind of go through, but like it's a very like kind of an episode that kind of shows Clark that it's like there's no way to kind of use his abilities or to not use his abilities in like that kind of a thing. Like it's too tempting, and it's such a like slippery slope. And it is our first episode. I think, yeah, it's our first episode with like Chloe's knowledge of Clark's abilities, and I do like how they play it. So I don't know. I would say this episode's like a B plus. You know, the problems in it are mostly that B plot, which is why like there's not really there's not enough like Lex in this episode to give him anything. And Welling does a good enough job, but like I do love Lois is my favorite part of this episode by far. But did you have anything else you want to add to this, or should we move on to the next one?
Mainly that I really like the parallel between Jeff and Clark,
and
how Jeff could possibly represent Clark's future if he did go on to play football.
Yep. And part of it is like it kind of goes back to when Jason was like saying like, oh, he like lied about Clark taking tests and stuff like that too. Like it's this whole thing which kind of goes into like the corruption in sports, but it's like it both shows like the problem in like those kind of activities, especially in college, and like all the grossness that goes around because the car is from like donor, like I can't remember what they're called, boosters, and like they get to borrow, which is totally not what they're supposed to do, and like all this like shady stuff, but also kind of that comes with like all of the pressure.
I mean, honestly, there's a really good, well, possibly the best sports show of all time that deals with all of this shit.
Is it Friday Night Lights?
Yeah.
It's a thing. It was an article that became a book, that became a movie, that became a show, that then had a movie.
And had quite the cast.
Well, which thing? The original movie or the TV show?
Hell, both.
Yeah.
The main villain for Life is Strange 1 is in Friday Night Lights.
Oh, there's like a ton of people like in those movies or in that show that went on to do big things. So let's move on to our second episode, Krypto. So to get out of the way, this dog is not is not actually Krypto in any way. It is referenced in the episode besides just the title. I don't think do we actually get a real Krypto in the show?
No.
No, right?
No.
So this is the only time we get it. And what I love is that the dog sticks around for like several seasons, which is awesome. So,
and then is given a canonical exit.
I don't remember the exit from the dog.
The dog and Clark ends up like after the show's over to explain that while Connor is living with Martha, Shelby joins them. Like Clark sends Shelby to.
Oh,
Connor.
really? Okay.
So it's sort of.
That's actually like kind of a perfect ending.
Yeah, it's a good way to tie up that loose end.
So to start off the show, basically we have this like grocer guy, and like I don't even know what to call this kind of store. It's almost like if you're not from like the Northeast, like I thought of it as like a Wawa. It's kind of like a 7-Eleven. It's not a big store because they say like grocery store. I'm like, it's not a grocery store. It's like a bigger convenience store, like a convenience store where you could buy like milk and stuff, but also lotto tickets. So this guy ends up getting the guy working there gets chased around. He locks himself in the locker where it's like cold food, frozen food, and we see that there is a Rottweiler and a Golden Retriever, and then there's like dents in the door. Then all of a sudden, like two guys come in. Or no, the dogs take money out of the safe, and then there's like two guys outside, and then the dogs respond to a whistle. They get the Rottweiler, named Hercules, and the money, but the Golden Retriever, who they call Einstein, is a good boy and runs away.
Who would want to touch the money after it's been in the dog's mouth? I know dogs' mouths are cleaner than humans, but...
So one thing that's funny is, though, so these two actors that are playing the brothers here,
yeah.
So one has been on Arrow. He played Cooper Selden, who basically was their version of like Brother Eye. He creates the program like Brother Eye thing.
It was a bit, or it was during the character was during Felicity's college years when she was against the system.
Yeah, he was her boyfriend, and like her boyfriend when she was all emo and like goth punk girl.
And then her past comes back to haunt her and versions of Felicity Smoke.
And then he comes back in a Suicide Squad episode, I believe, as well. Now the other brother, which is Diego Clantonhoff, he was one of the stars. Actually, he probably still is because I just don't watch that show. So he's been in a bunch of stuff. He was in Mean Girls. He's been in Pacific Rim. The main thing he's been in, though, is he is one of the stars of Blacklist.
Yes,
and then
since 2013.
Yeah, since the show started, he was on Blacklist. He was also in Homeland before that, but he's done a bunch of things. He was in 24, Mercy. He's done a bunch of things, but I remember him. I watched the first 2 seasons of Blacklist, and he was pretty good in that. So when watching this, I was like, oh, it's that guy. The other guy like is unrecognizable, but he's also like a baby in this. He's probably like 17 or 18. So Lois, on her way of collecting all her stuff from Met U, basically this episode takes like right after the other one. As she's driving, hits something in the road, and she's like, oh my god, and then it's a dog, and then she puts the dog in the car and brings it to the farm, and it's like the middle of the night, and they get up because they hear like some noise, and there's like a snap chain, and the dog is in the house. The refrigerator is like on the floor, and he's like eating everything in the refrigerator. and Lois comes down, and she's like, yeah, I chained him up outside. And they're like, okay. And then like Clark picks up the chain and is like, well, the chain's on him. So, and then like they go outside and see that the post was completely ripped off. And then also there's the funny bit that she's allergic to dogs. So Lois goes back to bed, and Clark's like, I guess I'll stay up and fix this. And basically he's also been staying up at night so that Lois doesn't see him do all his chores with his powers. So the next morning, Chloe brings Lois her mail and meets Clark and sees the dog, and Clark explains how they got him. And she asks about Lois and him, and Clark's like, he can't be himself around Lois, and Chloe's like that he can be around himself with the dog, and mentions, I'm also here for you too. And Chloe goes to find Lois.
Okay, I just checked the in other media section.
Mm-hmm.
Shelby is a canonical character.
Oh, really?
in Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb, who is a writer and producer on the show. Him and Tim Sale did Superman for All Seasons, and young Clark Kent has a dog named Shelby.
Oh, so they wrote Shelby into the comics. That's awesome.
No, this is they wrote.
Oh, before, right?
Before.
Oh, awesome.
And Shelby was ironically the 19th DC Comics character adapted into the series.
Really? That's fun. So Clark ties Shelby. Oh, they haven't named the dog. Clark ties the dog up to a tractor, and Chloe and him go to find Lois. And then they see that the dog has pulled the tractor into the front yard, and Clark's like, okay. And it's like, oh, uses X-ray vision, and is like, hey, maybe this dog is chipped. Because he sees the chip. So Lois and Chloe come out, and they see the tractor and the dog, and Lois is like, what is going on? And Clark's like,
I love how this entire episode is just a sell for, hey, you should get a dog.
Yeah. Well, I love the joke that Clark's like, oh, like, you're allergic to dogs? Maybe we should keep them.
Yeah.
And basically they're just like, oh, like, it's basically like Chloe's kind of puts on a show, and she's like, oh, trying to protect Clark's secret or whatever. And Clark tells Lois that they should probably get the chip scan at the vet. So they argue about what to call him, which I think this is when Clark is like, oh, what about Krypto?
And Lois suggests Bud, which is the actual name of the dog.
Of the real dog? Oh, okay, that's funny.
Yeah.
And I can't remember why they come up with Shelby. Is it Martha that names him?
I think so.
Yeah. So they take the dog to the vet.
Okay. Martha suggests Clark name the dog Shelby after a dog she owned as a child.
Okay. So they take the dog to get the chip scan at the vet. There, like when the dog sees the two brothers, or when it sees the one kid, it growls and doesn't want to anything. So they scan it, and it says Luthor Corp. And he's like, oh, it must have been one of the lap dogs. Like, I can return it. And Clark's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I'll take care of the dog. I know Lex, kind of a thing. And the guy's like, oh, okay. So Lois takes the dog back to the farm while Clark goes to talk to Lex. But the brothers are like, oh, why don't you leave your name and number in case like somebody comes here to like looking for him. And they're like, oh, okay, he's at the Kent farm, blah, blah, blah. So from here, like we see they have the other dog, the Rottweiler, locked in the black back. The older brother is like screwing with it. And they basically talk about how they used to work at the Luthor Corp lab, and they used to do these kryptonite injections to make these super dogs.
I'd say these are much better. How many years was this after Ang Lee's Hulk with the Hulk dogs?
Oh, God. Really, probably not that much. But, like, they also don't transform. But, yeah. And most of the time when they're doing super stunts, they're, like, the goofy kind of cutaway things. Where it's like, oh, they're doing something, oh, back, and everything's flipped around. So Clark goes to Lex, and he's like, you guys been experimenting in dogs, and Lex kind of uneasy. And Lex is like, no, it wasn't me. It was one of my dad's unsuccessful side projects. I had it, like I can't remember the phrase. It's like scuttered or something like that, or shuttered. And the dogs just
the correct term. Yeah,
and they were supposed to have the dogs humanely destroyed. And then he's like, "Oh, is the dog acting unusual?" Basically, like, because it like he's just like, because it'd be a liability on us if like it did anything. Clark's like, "Nah, he's normal. He's just chill. He's at the farm." And then we cut to Martha and Jonathan arguing whether they should keep the dog, especially as they hear something, and they cut this again with like the powers thing, and like they cut back and like the dining room table's broken in half, and it's like eating like a turkey or something. And they're cleaning up that night, and Jonathan's attacked by the Rottweiler, and then the other dog comes in, and the dogs kind of growl and fight each other. Then the Rottweiler hears the whistle and runs away, but then the Golden Retriever consciences it away and comes back. I think that they're making jokes. I think I also remember them making jokes about like it's just like when Clark was a child that shit like this would happen.
Martha mentions that he got super strength when he was 3 years old.
Yeah, and he broke the table too.
Yeah.
So Clark meets his parents at the hospital, and they realize that the dogs were responsible for the attack on the grocer. And Lois points out that the only people who knew the dog was on the farm were Lex and the brothers at the vet. And basically Jonathan's like, you shouldn't get too attached to him. If they attack the grocer, then like they're probably like very vicious and stuff.
And they'll have to be put down.
Yeah, and Clark's like upset, and he's like, "Why? He's a good dog. Like, when they do anything," and kind of upset and kind of like stomps off. And basically, Clark figures out that they're attacking like these Luther Corps payroll trucks, and so they know where they're going to go because of reasons how they got this information. He distracts Lois so he can super speed and stop the truck, but she insists on driving them slowly and carefully. Clark uses a super hearing, figures out where they are, and sees that they're robbing the security truck. The dogs are in cages, like subdued by like a kryptonite liquid, I guess, that we always see, like where it's like glowy. So Lois goes to help the security guards, and Clark climbs in the van, but he does not realize that there's the kryptonite in there. So he opens Shelby's thing, but as Shelby jumps out, one of the vials is smashed and he's all infected. So it drives off with Clark and Hercules. The guys eventually stop and they see that Clark is in the back and they're like, what the shit? But Shelby has followed them. They lock Clark in one of the cages and they're going to blow up the truck. But Shelby goes and pulls Clark to safety. I think this is when, because they were going to blow it up with the dog in it too, right?
Yeah.
So Clark knocks them out, and then Einstein goes to save the other dog. However, it's like scared of the flames. So, but Clark goes back in and rescues the Rottweiler, even though like he's going to get hurt by the kryptonite. So Clark brings both the dog back home. The vet gives it a clean bill of health. Lex comes to collect the dog, but Clark says it saved his life and he intends to keep him. And, Jonathan and Martha are like, totally cool. And this is where Martha suggests to name him Shelby. And then we cut to the very end, that terrible, terrible B plot, which we'll be dealing with in the next episode a lot. So Genevieve questions Lex about his motivations for hiring Jason. And she says, like, I told you to hire him to keep him away from Lana. And then, but I'm sure that you're using Jason to find the Stones of Power. And she's like, Jason, you need to leave it to me. But he confronts her. And she's like, you set up this whole thing for me to meet Lana. Genevieve reveals that, like, she knew Lana had a connection to Isabel Thoreau. And that their ancestors were responsible, like Jason and her ancestors were responsible for burning Isabel Thoreau. And that Isabel Thoreau were one of the things of power. And that there was, like, when she was dying, she said she'd kill all of Gertrude's heirs, which you're one of them. Lana sees them talking, but when Jason doesn't offer any details of the conversation, she asks Chloe to kind of do some side research. And Chloe's like, yeah, I can only go as far back as Genevieve's grandmother and their family come from this French village, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same village that Lana's ancestors are from, which I'm guessing this all comes from her mom's side, since we don't ever talk about her dad's side anymore, which, I don't know. There's a whole bunch of weirdness that they kind of hand wave over, of the fact that, like, Kristen Kirk is, like, half Chinese, like, ethnically.
Yeah.
Don't even address that fact. Like, all right, so her family's French by way of China, because Kristen Kirk in real life is she's mixed race. Because I listened to the Rosamund thing, and like her mom was born, I think, in like Indonesia, but like she's ethnically Chinese. So like Kirk is like half Chinese, which is why she played Chun-Li and stuff. So it's like,
yeah, that was actually one that she was more.
Yeah, because then they show
that she fit she fit more to that role than.
Well, so the thing in the show, it's like, all right, so we saw in the flashback to her parents, but we don't really get a good look at them. But then her aunt is white, which I assume her aunt is her mom's sister, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But then her biological father is also white.
Whitewashing.
Like, I know, but it like makes no sense. Like, because when we meet Small, so it's like, oh yeah, we forgot that they made the not bio dad is the one that's Asian, but now she's all white, but she's still Asian.
I'm just picturing the scene from Misery where he's just taking the paper out and just writing new ones.
It makes no sense. But basically, the last thing that we get to is that Isabel's tomb was moved to a church in Paris, which is the one that she sent like the Lana thing to, and that the only way that they could find out any answers is to talk to Jason about it. And then the last thing is Lionel warns Jason not to trust Lex, and then he gives him a copy of the map that you could X-ray vision through the manuscript. So, like, because they'd known that was like a thing. And that is where we end. this episode, which is a fun episode. This is an episode that's like a very palate cleansing. It's goofy. It has some kind of importance because it's kind of shows Clark's loneliness again and finding like a kindred spirit in Shelby. And Shelby is kind of an awesome. So I'm trying to remember. I think that they kind of say that Shelby's powers are gone at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shelby's just normal. So is the other dog.
Well, the ending of the episode, the song by the Goo Goo Dolls, they're covering a song that was playing like during the earthquake scene in Superman the movie.
Oh, okay.
It's on Lois's radio.
Yeah.
And actually, I did not watch this episode because all the like that. As soon as I heard Jonathan say or John Schneider say about or Shelby or Einstein might have to be put down, I started thinking about my old dog. And then I got.
Yeah, no, it sucks. But I do think this, like, to kind of go to like some of the things that the episode does is like it kind of shows it talks about animal testing. It talks about like, you know, the stuff with Clark and like dealing with his loneliness, as well as like kind of reiterating the shadiness that Lionel was doing. Like all of it is like super interesting. I like again the playfulness of Chloe trying to cover for Clark without Clark knowing she's covering for him. And then it's just full of like sight gags in this episode with like the table being broken and like the tractor, which is fun. It just sucks that it's like so like the last like 10 like it's like 5 minutes of the episode is like lead into the trash that we will be seeing in the next episode.
Man.
So this is probably a good point to preview that. So
I did like there's a bit a clip I watched. I searched for it. It's when they find is when Lois comes back to the Kent farm with Einstein, and Clark says, "We found this dog." And Lois says, "Actually, I found him. We hit him actually, but not hard. We call him Clarky." Clark is like, "We don't call him Clarky." Lois is like, "Is the Y part you don't like? Because we could always just make it Clark, but then that would get really confusing." But hey, maybe you should consider changing your name. You could be Skipper.
But it is great. Like it shows, like it's one of the things again, like how I love the way they build this relationship between the two of them. Like I like that Lois is always giving him shit. I'm trying to remember if like we've seen. Yeah, I think it was that bad episode where with the cheerleaders with like the love potion where Chloe kind of notices that they are like having this flirtation between them, even though neither of them notice it.
Yeah.
So, but this is where it kind of hits even more. So we are going to do a little bit of a change up. So our next 2 episodes, the first one is Sacred, which is, in my opinion, one of the worst episodes of the series. So here's a small clip that Alan got for that episode.
Kind of hard to take college application essays seriously after the last couple of days.
I was just trying to figure out if hidden temples and body snatching witches fits under community service or extracurricular.
All right. And our second episode is Lucy, which features...
You can tell by the name, and because this is small Superman related, it's about Lucy Lane.
Yep. So
who is played by Peyton List, who played Golden Glider on Flash, and apparently
I think she was Poison Ivy at some point at the end of Gotham.
Oh yeah, she was Poison Ivy. She was the last Poison Ivy on the last actress played Poison Ivy on Gotham.
Hey, have you recovered from Hurricane Lucy yet?
I just hope she changes her ways before she gets herself hurt.
You know, it never fails. Keeping secrets always lead to trouble. I don't know which is more difficult, being the one keeping the secret or the one who's being duped.
Have you talked to Lois? She's been holed up in her room all day. She took it all pretty hard.
Well, ever since I can remember, the one thing Lois has always wanted is protect her little sister.
I guess no matter how bad you want to, you can't save everyone.
But it doesn't stop you from trying, does it, Clark?
Yep.
And
I think this is the second of 3 live action versions of Lucy Lane, because there's one in Supergirl, and then there was in the movie Supergirl with Helen Slater, and then there's in season 1 of Supergirl, a TV show, features Lucy Lane, played by I forget her name, but she's married to Channing Tatum.
No, it was.
Was?
I'm pretty sure they got divorced.
Oh no.
I could be wrong.
Because I would say that it's a show I don't really watch, but my wife, we watched the clips of what is that show called? Lip Sync Battle, and
Oh,
the two of them did it, and it's probably the best. Nope, you're right. They did get divorced. It's Jenna Dewan.
Yeah, she had her.
They were together for almost a decade.
Oh, that reminds me. I was when I was watching the video of Inside of You with like Rosenbaum and Welling. Rosenbaum mentions like there's a part when they're talking about Welling's divorce and how he said there was a blonde.
Yeah, I think we've talked. I think it was what's her name that played
Sarah Carter.
Yeah, that's who I think they're referring to.
It has to be. There's no one.
Because the timeline makes sense, and that like they say recurring, don't they? Like a recurring guest star.
Yeah,
and that she's also on 3 episodes, so like there's enough time there where something kind of could have been a thing, and they're like in the same age range. But yeah, that's my guess too. She's also like the only one, which it doesn't make sense. She wasn't like a character that was a big part of the show, so she doesn't do cons with them. Like, because the only other blondes that would even come up would be Vandervoort and what's her name that played Canary, but they do the cons with them, so I think it would have come up. So I don't know. I think that just about does it for this episode.
The next episode of the guy who wrote this is the 18th episode of this season, which is the possession episode.
Oh no!
Yeah,
so it's the same person,
the same writer.
Oh no!
And it's someone who she's trying to possess whoever she can. So
oh, that episode. Okay, that one's not as bad.
Yeah, the prom queen episode.
That is actually, so that would be the pair after this. That pair is actually pretty good because it has one of the better episodes. Onyx is amazing, which is something they basically ripped off for this season of Supergirl that just happened. Because it's the whole reason why we get like the Red Sun Supergirl in this past season Supergirl. So we will check all that out next time.
Also, it's the episode I'm talking about where you could literally just do a side by side of Jensen Ackles, the way he looks and like near the end of the episode, compared to how he looks during like a dramatic moment on Supernatural. They look the same. It looks point and point.
Yeah, well, because they loved him, which is why they basically gave him a show. Well, him and the other guy a show. He's just a terrible character, and they just like throw him away so fast. And like 3 times in one episode, which we'll get to when we get to the finale. So I'll say, don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Phantom Zone. So And Now Comics, Phantom Zone Prime show, the After Darks, the movie specials, all that goodness. Rate, review, subscribe, leave 5 stars. Check out the other shows. Legion of Toon should be coming back soon. And Alan, you have Lost Horror Games.
Yeah, me and Emmett recorded about a couple. By the time this comes out, it will have been a few days ago. Emmett had to do 75% in. I had to exit because I was really groggy because apparently I can't take my medicine at an early time. Yeah,
I'm the same way with all that stuff.
Yeah, so but for the last 20 minutes of the show, it becomes a one-man show. And yeah, we talked about No Man's Sky, I did my best to defend Fallout 76. We talked about the Cuphead Netflix show, and Emmett talked about the Nintendo Switch Lite.
Oh, what is that? I'm guessing it's just like a smaller version?
Yeah, and there's no detachable Joy-Cons.
Okay, because I'm actually in the market for a Nintendo Switch, but I think I kind of like the version that's here.
The only downside is that it can't be docked, so...
No, the light can't? That's annoying.
Yeah.
All right, well, you can check out all of that goodness at Lost Horror Games. Go to losthorror.wordpress.com. Check out all the podcasts, all the articles. Subscribe. Again, leave 5-star reviews.
I'd suggest I'd say, hey, check out this article, but apparently Graydon's goddamn Golf Blitz one is just kicking ass.
Wow.
It has over 160 views.
Oh, wow. All right, so go check that out and share that stuff. Help grow the stuff. All right, we will check you guys next time. I'm Lou Gonzalez.
I'm Alan Muir, and this podcast stands for truth, justice, and the American way. And for this episode, how cute dogs are.